Today we'll be talking about how to interpret the InBody 380 result sheet. The InBody 380 result sheet is divided mainly into 6 parts. So we talk about body composition analysis, muscle fat analysis, obesity analysis, then again the ECW ratio, phase angle, body composition history. Let's talk about the first part, body composition analysis. The first parameter in body composition analysis is total body water. InBody 380 uses three frequencies which calculate the intracellular water and extracellular water. Together with the help of these frequencies, we get our first parameter, total body water. So this total body water will increase only when the muscle mass is increasing. Anybody who sees the result sheet, if they see that the total body water is in deficit, the person may feel that yes, I have to just drink 8 glasses of water and then the total body water will increase. But no, if you want to increase this total body water, then it is very important to increase the muscle mass. Secondly, in this body water, how much amount of protein is present? That also you can understand through the result sheet. If the protein is in deficit, then the person has to take a little bit of supplementation or has to focus more on the dietary protein intake. Also in this case, muscle mass has to be increased very well. The third part is minerals. These minerals are a combination of osseous minerals and non-osseous minerals. Osseous minerals are the ones which are important for our bone health, like calcium, magnesium, while the non-osseous minerals are the other trace minerals. So in case if someone has a deficit of minerals, then specifically they have to focus more on their mineral count levels, like having more calcium rich foods, having more magnesium rich foods. And in case if there is toxicity, extreme minerals are found in their body, then they have to focus on some issues which can be there, which can be scanned through a CBC report. Lastly, we have body fat mass. So if we add the total body water, protein plus minerals, we get the fat-free mass. And if we add the fat-free mass plus fat mass, we get the total weight of the individual. So the body fat mass is the total amount of fat present in kgs in the body. So again, we have to check the lower limit and upper limit. If someone has excess amount of fat in their body, then the person is considered obese. And to understand the fat to muscle ratio, we'll be studying the next part of the result sheet. The second part of the result sheet is the muscle fat analysis, the most interesting part of the InBody result sheet. Here, we can compare the muscle to fat ratio and also compare it with the total weight of the individual. So if you look at the result sheet, the muscle fat analysis has three parameters: weight, skeletal muscle mass, SMM, and body fat mass. If the weight of the individual is a little high, muscle mass is less and body fat is high, then the graph which will be formed is a C-shaped graph. This is called a cautionary graph. The second type of graph is the I-shaped graph. That is the ideal graph. If someone has a proper weight, proper muscle mass and proper body fat, everything in the normal range, then the person has an ideal body type which has to be maintained. The third type of the graph is a developed type of graph, which is a D-shaped graph, wherein the muscle mass is high, weight is low and body fat is also low. So since the person has more muscle mass, the body is more developed. That's why we call it the developed graph. Further, we'll be seeing the more segregation in these three types of graphs. There are three types of the C-shaped graph. The first one is standard weight and weak, where the weight is normal, muscle mass is less and body fat is a little high. So that's why since the muscle mass is less, the person is a little weak. The second type of the graph is where the weight is normal, muscle mass is less, but body fat is high. So this is a standard weight and obese category. Even though the person may seem normal because the weight is normal, but since there is more body fat in the body, the person is considered obese. The last type of graph is when the person has high weight, less muscle mass and more body fat. So the extra weight which the individual possesses is completely body fat. So in this case also, muscle mass has to be focused on and has to be increased. while the weight and body fat has to be reduced. This is an overweight and weak type of graph. When we talk about the I-shaped graph, it is very important to understand where the I-shaped graph is forming. The first type of I-shaped graph which forms in the under category where muscle mass, body fat and even the weight is under. This is considered as malnutrition when the person is underweight and weak. So in this case, the first protocol is proper nutrition and then a little bit of exercise. The second type of I-shaped graph, which we can actually call an ideal graph, is when everything is forming in the normal category. The weight, muscle mass and body fat, everything is normal. So when somebody has a graph like this, they have an InBody score of 80, which is the ideal body type. While the third type of graph is when someone has high weight, then high muscle mass and high body fat as well. So such a person has a very big frame, is tall, is overweight, has more muscle mass as well as has more body fat. So in this case again, a little bit of focus should be given to body fat reduction while the muscle mass has to be maintained. The third type of the graphs which we form are the D-shaped graphs. The first one is underweight and strong. Imagine a marathon runner. Marathon runners normally have to maintain their weight a little less. If the person is playing in a lightweight category, then the weight is less, muscle mass is high, and body fat is also less. So this is forming a D-shaped graph, but the person is underweight. Secondly, if we talk about cricketers specifically, they have to maintain a normal weight, while the muscle mass has to be more and body fat has to be less. They are considered under the strong weight and strong body type category. While the last one is, if we consider the example of actors, at times they are a little overweight, maybe because of a certain role, they have to build up a certain body type. But the excess weight which they possess is specifically muscle mass, while the body fat has to be maintained. So again, they are overweight but strong type. So these are the three types of D-shaped graphs which we can understand from this slide. Now let's talk about the third part of the result sheet, which is the obesity analysis. The obesity analysis is comprising of two parameters. The first one which is being BMI, body mass index, and PBF, which is percent body fat. So it's very important to understand that BMI is not a correct parameter to understand the health status. There are cases where the BMI is normal, but when the percent body fat is checked via the body composition devices, the percent body fat appears to be much more than what is expected. So that's why even though a person is appearing normal, we cannot actually predict if the person is healthy or not. That's why if we see the obesity analysis, in this you can see that there's the first parameter is BMI, which is, as globally we see, 18.5 to 25. These ranges are again customizable. If somebody wants to keep it from 18.5 to 23, even that is possible. Secondly, in this we have the percent body fat. So the percent body fat for males has to be between 10 to 20%, while the percent body fat for females has to be between 18 to 28%. Anybody who is exceeding this percent body fat is considered obese. That's why even though if they have a normal BMI, but they are obese. So that's why we have to keep in mind that BMI is not a correct parameter to understand the health status, but percent body fat has to be considered. Coming to the next parameter, which is segmental lean analysis. InBody divides our body into 5 cylinders, which is right arm, left arm, trunk, right leg, left leg. So with the help of this technology, we can actually understand how much amount of muscles are present in each segment of the body. This is what we call as segmental lean analysis. So we have to analyze in this, in which segment of the body how much muscles are present. Normally, the segmental analysis has to be between 90 to 110%. If you have muscles between 90 to 110%, it is considered as normal. In case if you see that the muscles are under in a specific body region, then specifically more focus has to be given for muscle development in that region. In the segmental analysis, you will see that the muscles are initially given in kgs, and also that is accounting to how much percent of muscle mass is given. So if you look at the infographic, you'll understand that in this example, the person has 2.01 kg muscles in the right arm, which is accounting to 102% of muscle requirement. If you are touching the 100%, then yes, you have adequate muscles for that specific body region. If the muscles are slightly less than say 90%, then more muscle mass development is required in that region. So let's take a simple example. If someone has under or less muscles in their lower body, then leg training or leg muscle exercises are required to gain more muscles in the legs. While if somebody has less muscles in their upper body, then upper body exercises like weightlifting or simple exercises which can be done at home also can be recommended. Lastly, if someone has less muscle mass in their core, which is the trunk, then core exercises like planks or even for that matter squats can be very helpful. So something like that can be advised to the patients. Similar to the segmental lean analysis, you can also find segmental fat analysis on the result sheet. So similarly, where exactly how much amount of fat is accumulated, that can be targeted, and accordingly a little bit of more exercise focus can be given to that region. If we talk about more fat accumulation in the trunk, then core exercises can again be beneficial for this matter. If there is more fat in the upper body fat burning exercises. And similarly, for lower body, a little bit of exercise modification can be very beneficial. Also, it's very important to understand that spot reduction is not possible. We cannot remove fat by just doing exercise from a specific region. But yes, in certain surgical procedures, even this can be very beneficial to understand the fat accumulation. Now let's talk about a very interesting parameter, ECW ratio. InBody can measure if there is any fluid retention or swelling in the body with a simple parameter called the ECW ratio. The normal range for the ECW ratio is 0.360 to 0.390. In case if someone has a higher ECW ratio than 0.390, then there can be a little bit of presence of fluid accumulation in the body. This can eventually lead to edema. So that's why it's very important to detect if there is any fluid retention or if there is any swelling in the body through this ECW ratio. Talking about the next parameter, which is the phase angle. When the frequencies pass through our body, when you stand on an InBody device, the frequencies make a certain angle with your cells. Greater the angle, better is the cell health. This angle is called as the phase angle. For a normal person, the phase angle has to be 4 and above. This indicates that the cell health of the individual is really good. If someone has a phase angle below 2, then it is an alarming situation and the person has to be get checked immediately. If a person has a phase angle between 2 to 4, then again monitoring is required. There may be a certain underlying illness which can be checked through a CBC report. Lastly, phase angle is nothing but something which is telling you the cellular integrity. It is telling how elastic the membrane is, how good the cell health is. That's why a lot of researches are done using the phase angle. The next part of the result sheet is the most critical part, which is the body composition history. The body composition history has weight, muscle mass, percent body fat, and ECW ratio. First time when the test is done, there is a plotting on the graph. And next time, say after a period of 1 month, if the person is doing the test again, then they will have a graph of the readings. So this becomes very easy for the health professional to track and monitor if the line of treatment is going in the correct direction or not. For dietitians also, it's very easy to monitor if the lifestyle modifications and the diet which they have given is actually improving the patient's health or is a little bit more modification required. So that can be easily monitored through the body composition history. Kindly note, in case if you want to assess the body composition history, it is very important to input the same ID which you have put for the initial time. So in case if someone has put their phone number as the ID, the same phone number has to be input the second time so that you have the body composition history on your result sheet. Now let's move to the customizable part of the result sheet. The first one being the InBody score. 80 is the ideal InBody score. Anybody having a score of 80 is considered having a proper body composition, a ideal body composition. In case if someone has a score less than 80, so there's a formula through which we calculate it. If you see the slide specifically, the fat control is minus 9.9. Minus 9.9 indicates that minus 9.9 kgs of fat has to be reduced. While if you see the muscle control, it indicates plus 2.5, which indicates that this person needs to gain plus 2.5 kg muscles. In this way, if we round off it, 9.9 rounding off to 10 and 2.5 rounding off to 2, so 10 plus 2 is 12. 80, which is our ideal score, minus 12 comes down to 68. So that is how we are calculating our InBody score. Now let's talk about something which is very important. Sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is termed as a disease now. What is sarcopenia? Sarcopenia is muscle wasting. And initially we used to assess sarcopenia only through hand grip strength or gait speed. But now on the InBody result sheet, we have a proper parameter only to assess sarcopenia, which is muscle loss or muscle wasting which is happening. So if someone has a SMI, skeletal muscle index, below 5.7, and if she is a female, then she is sarcopenic. There is presence of muscle loss. While if a male has a SMI below 7, then again the person is sarcopenic. So in both of these cases, we need to understand that muscle loss is happening and adequate measures have to be taken to stop the muscle loss. There is a small formula through which we calculate the SMI. SMI is calculated by appendicular muscle mass divided by height square. Talking about the other research parameters, through the InBody report, you can actually understand how much amount of intracellular water is present in the body. Intracellular water is the water which is present inside our cells. And also you can make out how much amount of extracellular water is present in the body. If there is presence of more extracellular water, there can be presence of edema, which can be again assessed by the ECW ratio analysis. Other than this, a very important parameter is the visceral fat level. Visceral fat is the most dangerous kind of fat which is around our organs. So in case if somebody's visceral fat is getting accumulated, the threshold for visceral fat is 10. And if the threshold is crossing, so if the visceral fat is more than 10, then it is an alarming state and in which the person has to take measures to reduce this visceral fat. Also, along with the visceral fat, you can also assess what the waist to hip ratio of the individual is. In case if she is a female, the waist to hip ratio has to be between 0.75 to 0.85. While if it is a male, the waist to hip ratio has to be between 0.80 to 0.90. If the waist to hip ratio is over these ranges and the visceral fat is also high, then there can be presence of maybe any future CVD related issues or any endocrine related issues. That's why prevention is better than cure. Whenever anybody is exercising or doing any sort of physical activity, the BMR increases. That normally we calculate through the Harris-Benedict equation. And here also on the InBody result sheet, you can find the basal metabolic rate, the resting calories of the individual. So if the BMR is falling between the normal range, then the person's metabolism is good. And in case if it's on the lower side, then more work has to be done to improve the BMR. One more parameter which we have is the body cell mass. It is a combination of intracellular water and protein. So somebody who has a better body cell mass normally has a good cellular health. Through the InBody 380, one more thing which you can assess is the segmental circumference. The circumference of neck, chest, abdomen, right arm, right thigh, left thigh, everything can be assessed just with one analysis. InBody also provides result sheets which are specifically customized for the pediatric population. So instead of the segmental analysis, for the pediatric population, we provide growth charts, which are according to the CDC WHO data. With this, we have completed the InBody 380 result sheet interpretation. Thank you so much for listening to us attentively.